welcome back to another episode of the Feel Your Feelings podcast. I'm your host, Victoria Makanjuola, and today I am joined by a very special guest. I'm so honored to have her on my podcast. Her name is Taylor Schlitz. She is a homegirl from Dallas, from the DFW area, and let me pull up her profile, y'all, because it is extensive. Okay, so she's an educator, a lawyer, an activist, an author, a public speaker, a thought leader, and so many things. She's the youngest SMU law graduate, and I don't even think I've covered half of those titles. But welcome to the Feel Your Feelings podcast. Thank you for joining me. And how are you feeling?
Thank you for having me. I'm feeling so excited. This took a couple of tries, like 2 or 3 with calendars. So I'm really glad. Thank you for being understanding. I'm in the middle of a move, but yeah. I'm very excited to be here.
Thank you so much. And I appreciate you taking the time out, of your schedule and everything. So my first thing that I want to ask you is who is Haley? Because you have many titles. First and foremost, I follow you on Threads, right? And so, first of all, this is the Game Changer series, and you are one of the people that I definitely wanted to talk to because on Threads, you posted a couple weeks back, you said, let's get a thread going for hashtag Gen Z activist. I'll start. 20 years old with my JD and teaching social studies in Texas. Just helped pass the Crown Act into law into Texas. 2020 Biden delegate, actually the youngest one, and ran for my local school board, taking on Patriot Mobile and Moms Pushing book bans. So who is Haley? Because you have many titles. So how would you describe yourself?
So, yeah, I mean, that's definitely on Threads, especially since it's so new, really just getting into the app. But yeah, that definitely does kind of highlight where I'm at right now. I graduated law school last year. I just finished taking the bar. I taught for the last academic year, and I just started my second year of teaching 5th grade social studies. So when it comes to my career path, I'm a lawyer and I'm a teacher. So exactly where I want to be, and only bigger dreams from here. And more personally, I have a lot of hobbies. Because I was homeschooled, my mom signed me up for a lot of extracurriculars, and a lot of them became things that I very much enjoyed and passionate about. So I played the piano for 10, 11 years now, and the harp for 5 or 6. And I love to read and do art and be outside and play sports. And I just, there's a little bit of everything, because my mom, she really made sure that our homeschooling experience was integrated. So that's kind of more on a personal note. I very much like the creative side of things. It's a nice relief from the law.
That's amazing. I'm glad, you're 20 and you get to, still live your life as a 20-year-old. So that's great. So your bio says that you don't find your path, you make it. What does that mean to you?
I always say that when I'm doing speaking engagements, and I'm really glad you asked that, because for a lot of people, they may think that kind of sounds cliche or that sounds very generic. But I've actually been very fortunate to be able to live that exact quote that I just kind of randomly came up with, but I really emphasize it on people because I mean it's I try to make it what it sounds like when I'm talking to especially groups of students. And I hope that my story and that quote inspires them to take a more active role in not just their education but their lives, and be a more active player or character in it. A lot of times, it's known, but people don't think about it like this, that, education is just a tool that you can use to thrive and excel. But it's definitely not the end all be all. It's not the only way. And even if you have to be in public school, have to be in private school, have to be in charter school or homeschooling, some people, they, religious purposes or whatever it may be, only homeschool, or some people, they have to be in public school, and that that should not matter. And obviously policies are working to equal that playing field. But at the end of the day, regardless of where you're at, the quote is really supposed to mean that you are not going to stumble across a shell of you that you can jump into, or a path of golden lights. A lot of people who are maybe taking gap years, or who are just don't really know who they are or what they want to do, think that they'll find themselves by doing a certain thing or not doing a certain thing. And I always try to encourage the students to think about it as like I said, something that we maybe know but don't realize that we're not acting in accordance with is that you have to be the active player, you have to be the driver, you have to be the main person in your life that's controlling the outcome, and you make what you want your life to be. And of course, some people have more tools than others to pave this path, and there's a fight that's going on to write policies to equalize that and give everybody the same toolbox and the same starting point, the same opportunities, or the opportunities that are equitable. But at the same time, having that healthy mindset of this is life's not just happening to you. This is your life. You make it what you want it to be. You create it. You're not walking down a predetermined path. Is really what it's supposed to be. And like I said, it might sound cliche, but when you dissect it, hopefully I inspire students to see that that's not just something I say as like a cliche or overly generic. It really is something that has had a lot of meaning to me in my life.
Whew, well, you're hitting home with that, literally with me. So I can feel your passion, while you're talking. So what are you most passionate about right now?
So that's a great question because right now I'm like I said, I'm starting my second year of teaching, and what possibly might be my last year of teaching before I go into public policy, and not that they're mutually exclusive, but my last year of solely teaching. And that's exactly where my passions lie. My undergraduate degree was in education, and like we touched on at the beginning, I graduated law school last year, and it happened to be when I thank you. It happened to be when I was 19, but that was never the
Right.
intent. I mean, it's been a passion of mine since I was like 13 or just starting college that I wanted to change the way the public school system looks, the way it's structured, the way it functions, the nitty gritty, the general, like all of it. Like I really think that it needs a factory reset in the sense of you just really approach it with a whole new mindset of modern day. Like it was crafted for like when the country started, like
Yeah.
that's what it was made for. It was made for that population and that version of America in mind, and we're very very starkly different now, almost one could argue like opposites now. And that's something that I mean, like a lot of things have to play catch up, and one of those is being the public school system and education. And not everyone can private school, not everyone can do private school or charter school or
Yeah.
homeschooling or whatever it may be, and they shouldn't have to be their best selves and be successful and thrive. And that may mean 19 and a doctor, 19 and a lawyer, 19 and whatever, 13 and whatever. Like regardless of age, though, every student should be able to thrive. So that's exactly where my passions lie, which is why, like you and I ran for school board, which is why my undergraduate degree in education, I wanted to go to law school. And I went to law school because combining my undergraduate degree in education with law school is crafting public policy on education. So that's the next steps. I definitely love teaching. I want to continue doing that. Like I said, it's not mutually exclusive in any way. But yeah, that's where my passions lie, at least career wise.
That's awesome, and, like, you can have multiple passions, like, something that
Exactly.
I've definitely had to learn over time is, like, just because I'm in one field, and mind you, I have 2 degrees, a bachelor's and a master's, and I felt like that I had to stay in that field, which so I
Yeah.
studied media and communications and
Yeah.
journalism, and
Hmm.
that I had to maybe stay in journalism
Yeah.
to go places, but my interests are spread out, so I'm like, "No, I can do
Exactly.
podcasts, and I can do this too," so
Exactly.
yeah, that's really cool. So I want to talk to you about the Crown Act. How did you help to pass the Crown Act into law in Texas?
So it took a lot of work and a lot of advocacy. The Crown Act was proposed last session as well, or like drafted and submitted last session as well. But it didn't get through. It was published or like submitted too late, honestly. In Texas, they're not in session for that long, so when they are,
Okay.
it really is like just cranking out
Yeah.
new policies, new drafts, new bills. And so a lot was going on in with even with all of the advocacy and all the people going down to the Capitol and the press conference that we did, it was still just too late. It didn't get to the floor. And it didn't get a vote, so it didn't get to make it out. But this session, like with the momentum of last session, with all the recognition and the support that it had gained over the course of between the two sessions out here in Texas, it finally got a chance to make it further in the process. And like I said, I was there at the press conference last session. I went down to the Capitol, God knows how many times over the course of this
Yeah.
session, and went down and just advocated and spoke about why it's important from a student's point of view, from a teacher's point of view. And for those who don't know, the Crown Act bans hair discrimination, discrimination based on natural hair and hairstyles, both in education and in the housing market when you're shopping for houses, selling houses, etc. So that's what it does. And so I was able to speak from not only a member of Gen Z, which are the students in our public schools right now, my friends, my peers, like they are are in the schools, and people that I interact with on a daily basis within the advocacy realm. So they're my peers and friends, and then also as a teacher and my colleagues and peers in that realm, that understanding their experiences and navigating wearing hairstyles and so forth in your career, and not just teaching. There's people who have been on the news and had to tame their hair. There are people who've been in it, like every medium. There's been people. I'm sure you can find somebody who will share a story about hair discrimination. So very important. And I was able to go down there, and I was very happy that I was able to share those experiences and walks of life and intersectionality that I bring to the table, to express to our representatives why this is so important.
Yeah, and what does that mean to you and those who look like you? Because I recently
Mm-hmm.
did an interview with my natural hair, and the lady that interviewed me had her natural hair out too. And like
Yes,
it wasn't until after the fact that I realized, I was like, I just did a whole interview with my hair.
exactly.
She had her natural hair, and it wasn't like a big like, oh my
Yes.
gosh, you know? So like
Yes, exactly. I mean, it's
what's the
such a
impact?
big win. It is like, and it's things like that, like things that a lot of people maybe take for granted who don't have to experience discrimination based on their natural hair, or just maybe have never come across before or didn't realize how deeply rooted it can be. Those microaggressions are real. And if you felt like while you were doing this job interview, even if she never said anything, even if she didn't even necessarily do anything overt, you can feel people's energies.
Yeah.
Students can feel people's energies. So when their teacher is looking at them, and like something like they never said anything, never did anything, but the student feels that passive aggressive or that aggressive energy, and those microaggressions that they're on the receiving end of. And it definitely has an impact. It would have had an impact on you during your interview if you felt that. Like it studies show that when there's plenty of statistics, like as a more broader sense and not just hair discrimination, when you make somebody, they had a test where they had, I think it was men and women, and they had them write one control group where they just wrote their name and started taking like a test, and it was a test like a fifth grade math test, like something that they could do. And then there was another group where they had them identify their gender before they took the test, and the women in that group did worse, because you're reminded of the fact that society doesn't expect you, doesn't think that you're smart, doesn't think that you're capable. And even if you never, like, they never said that, it was just one question about like, please also put your gender, and same test, nothing else changed. Obviously a diverse enough group of people where they would have had a same medium of like education level and understanding of the test. And it's things like that where when you're part of a group that's discriminated against or judged or something along those lines, and you're reminded of it. So when you're a student and you're just trying to learn, but your literal DNA is being discriminated against, or when you're in a job interview and somebody's like, yeah, like we really like you, but do you think you'd be able to tame your hair if you came and work here? That wouldn't, no, that you would suddenly go from being really excited to feeling like this was not the environment for
Self-conscious.
you. Yes. And
Yeah.
so it really is a huge win for everyone. I mean, every just period. But on top of that, especially the people who are on the receiving end of this, who are just trying to navigate and thrive in this country, and
Yeah.
constantly are facing discrimination, and a lot of it is race-based discrimination, or like founded and rooted in race-based discrimination, because I mean, it's our DNA. Like, this is exactly what it is. This makes us who we is in every element of it. So it definitely is a huge win. And like I said, for me as Gen Z, for me as a teacher, for me as a lawyer, for me as a person, just
Yeah.
as somebody who lives here in this country, it's a huge win for everyone. But after the advocacy and the value that it really will provide, it's something that I saw and was really pushing.
Yeah. And thank you for what you do. I just want to just thank
Thank
you
you.
for what you do.
Thank
For
you.
thank you. And keep doing it. So, what's next for you?
So I kind of touched on, and it's not like I haven't drafted, like there's nothing like
Right,
the
right.
route that I drafted or planned yet, but I definitely want to go into the public policy realm, being an elected
Okay.
official. I want to work with nonprofits or other companies that lobby and advocate for certain policies with elected officials. So there's definitely, because when I say that I want to go into education policy, when people ask like, oh, what kind of lawyer do you want to be, like what kind of lawyer are you, and I say education is what I want to work on, they're like, oh, what does that look like? Because
Yeah.
it's not like criminal law where that's
Yeah.
like very like familiar for people. And so
Yeah.
there's a lot of different ways to do it. I always tell them you could be a representative, and not that you have to be a lawyer to be a representative, but you can go into that. Now that you have this foundation in the laws and how to write them, how to research them, how to read them, etc., you could be a really good representative in that sense, and potentially and do good work. And you have a solid foundation. And additionally, you can work for nonprofits or work with nonprofits, work with other organizations and advocate, or you could lobby. There's a lot of options. So I
Yeah.
definitely, to answer your question in short, I definitely think that I want to go into public policy realm deeper, whether that be with an organization or as an elected official. But I want to continue teaching too. I love my students.
Amazing. Amazing. I think you could do both. I think you could pull both.
Exactly.
Why not? Why not? Okay, so I'm really excited to get into these game changers questions, game
Yes.
changer specific questions for you. So, are you ready? Let me know if
Yes.
you're ready. Okay, let's do it. So, what makes you a game changer?
So I think a lot of times, like on the that's a great question because I think on the surface, people would think what makes me a game changer is that I'm like the youngest person in the history of this
Yeah.
country, youngest black person in the history of this country to get their law degree, and that's not ever that was never the goal. Like when my mom put me out and homeschooled me when I started my undergraduate degree, when I started law school, it wasn't the goal. Of course, the goal was to graduate within the allotted time. 3 years is how long you're supposed to be in law school. Like that, of course, was the plan, but it was never like the beacon to be like I want to be the youngest and I want to get this record. So I think a lot of what drives me and a lot of what like how I try to be a game changer is to hopefully lead, inspire, and relate to others and allow them to also or encourage them, I guess is a better word, to thrive and succeed in whatever that looks like. And so, like I was hinting on earlier about the quote that I always say, I do speaking engagements all over the country, and I share my story with the hopes that it inspires them to to craft their journey in a more ambitious way and not be as passive as maybe a lot of people don't realize they are. And I think that with a lot of the advocacy that I'm doing, not just in politics and public policy, which also is a huge game changer for politics is just a huge game changer for the
Yeah,
country,
for sure.
but not just in that, but also encouraging and teaching other people how to do that as well, how to advocate for themselves, how to build what they want to see, whether that be their own personal journeys or building the elected officials and what they want those to look like with their votes, or building the policies that they want to see by being an elected official or by advocating and reaching out to their elected officials, like really just being more active in their lives. And that includes public policy, that includes politics. Obviously, it touches everything in our lives. So I think to answer your question in shorter, I think that I really try to be a game changer in every facet of my life, and I try to do that by inspiring and leading others in a way that maybe they didn't even realize that they needed to be ignited in, and hopefully they'll be more active in their lives and in public policy.
Girl, you are sharp. what
Thank
what is
you.
some game-changing advice that you've received?
So, some game changing advice that I've received that I always, always, always tell my students and is that if you're not sure what you want to do as you're going through your high school degree and trying to achieve your get your diploma, a lot of times people will try to take a gap year or think that they need to take a gap year to figure out what they want to do, potentially like saving money from going to university and not knowing or maybe
Yeah.
wasting time. And it kind of is like all rooted back to the quote that I try to say because it's like generic on its face, but this is exactly why, that it's so much safer to start college, get exposed to, and I always encourage them to consider community college. If you're not sure if college is for you, there's trade school and careers, and if you know that you want to go to trade school or start your career, like obviously full steam ahead.
That part.
But if you're
Yeah.
not sure, you can always take a community college class, so much less expensive than universities. You could take a college class, see if college is for you. You'll find out right then if college is for you. And if it actually is not what you thought it was, like not as hard, not as difficult to transition, what like you really do fit into this better than you thought. Now you know, and you didn't have to take a year to figure out to get there or figure something out. Like in short, my mom, she gave me the advice that you don't want to stop moving. And I think that there's
Mm,
this quote, this
that's good.
question where it says, if you were in the exact same spot as you are right now, 5 years from now, would you be happy? And everybody always answers that question, no. Like everybody that I've asked, no. And it's like, well, like, why is that? And it's because they have goals and you want to achieve them. So basically, if you were in the same spot, you would feel like you just wasted 5 years. You just spawned, and instead of being 20, I'm 25. Nothing else is different. that's unfortunate because I have goals. And then the next question is like, then why are you afraid of change? Like, why are you afraid of taking that step, keeping moving? And taking a gap year with no other intention is stopping moving, at least in this academic realm. Again, if you're trying to like start your career, you got this job, you got this trade,
Yeah.
full steam. But if you're taking a gap year to consider college or something, you should definitely expose yourself to college classes. That is the best way to see if you are fit for college, is to try it. And if you
Yeah.
try one class at community college, it's so much cheaper and it's not for you. That was one class that you took. It's like $300, and that's not like extremely affordable for everyone. But if you spend that gap year working to save money for that class, you try it, you see if you like it or not. Like, that's still moving because you're still working toward a goal rather than like not really having a certain direction you're trying to move. And I like to make the analogy where if you, when you're in school or when you're in your trade or when you're in your, a higher education or at your job, you're constantly moving, and as you move, things that were too far in the distance to see start to come into vision. So when you're getting your master's, as you're getting closer and closer to graduating, maybe new jobs are coming up that you'll be available for, or maybe like things that you would never have been able to see if you stopped moving because you didn't know if you wanted to get a master's, you didn't know if you wanted to do this. As you keep moving, things will keep passing by and they'll become in your vision. And if you start taking college classes, you get exposed to things that maybe you never would have been otherwise exposed to. Like in your everyday life, you're probably not exposed to philosophy very often, or psychology, or whatever it may be that they're teaching you about. Maybe that is your passion. Maybe that is something that you can discover about yourself, but only if you keep moving and expose yourself to those classes. So that's something that my mom passed down to me. And in short, basically, to not stop moving. And I always encourage TCC, or that's my local community college, but whatever it may be, or your local CC, and it's cheaper. And transfer students, just as a note, get accepted at so much higher rates, even to the Ivy Leagues, than fresh out of high school students. So it is not detrimental if you start at community college and you're like, I wish, like now I know college is for me. I wish I would have just went to college. You can still get accepted and graduate from that
Not
four-year
too late.
university, and you'll go in with credit, so it won't take you 4 years. It's not a
Mm-hmm.
waste of time. It
Yeah.
saves so much money. You get exposed and get to do the trial and error before you get there, so you have a higher chance of being at the top of your class. Like, it is so beneficial. So the really long answer, but that is definitely what that is definitely a piece that always stuck with me and changed my life infinitely, is what my mom
For
said.
sure. For sure. And your mom has some golden advice, which perfectly leads me into my next question is, who is one of your biggest role models?
Yes, I mean it did, because my answer is my mom. She is my biggest role model. I mean, she just her life. Obviously, her as the mother and mother figure, and my mother in my life, like
Yeah.
obviously. But that aside, what she's done with her life, she's an emergency medicine physician, and she was born in Compton, and her father was the second person shot and killed in the Rodney King civil unrest. So yeah, so before, like, that is a huge factor in what inspired her to want to be a physician, is to help people. And you always hear that when people, like, why do you want to be a doctor? Like, to help people, but like in a very a much more personal tone for
Personal.
her, of seriously, like being emergency medicine, being there for people as they're in their potential last seconds, like being the person who can help them and save their lives. And that would have made all the difference for my mom and her
Yeah.
father. And so her story, and obviously that's just such a broad overview and only the beginning, but her story is so inspiring, and she's such a hard worker. And obviously she was the determining and turning factor in my life, not just because I was born to her, but also because of the advice she's given me, the guidance she's given me, the coaching she's giving me, like she and continues to give me and will continue to give me. She's just everything. So yeah, definitely when people ask like who was your biggest role
Yeah.
model, or who was the game changer that inspired you, or who's like the beacon or anything along those lines, it's always my mom, in every medium of my life. And of course there are other amazing women out there who also inspire me, but mom's top rank.
Yeah. You pretty much answered the question that comes after that, is what makes that person a game changer? Like, what
Mhm.
makes your mom a game changer?
Yeah.
No.
She is somebody who, like, this podcast, she would also probably be a fascinating conversation to have with her too, because her
I
story,
bet.
like, this is such a good podcast and such a good idea, and her story is
Thank you.
is a really awesome one. I'm not biased at all, but her story is a really awesome one, and really inspiring. Not just for
Yeah.
me, obviously, as her daughter, but also
Yeah.
as somebody who's reflecting and is now older, so can take
Yeah.
myself out of the daughter position and put
Mm-hmm.
myself in more of a generic position and see how she impacts other people. It really is the world of a difference for me, in my life and in so many others.
Man, that's awesome. That's awesome. I'm thinking about my mom now, so
Yeah.
yeah, for sure. Okay, so I want to get into some speed round questions for you.
Let's
So
do it.
basically, you just can respond with like one or two sentences, just short and sweet. Short and sweet, basically. Okay, so what's the last song that you listened to?
Probably Calm Down. Wait, what is it, Rema?
Marema?
Yeah, there we
What?
go.
Love it. Love it. I was thinking
Yes,
that song earlier.
I
Like, no,
love it.
no kidding. No kidding. Nice. Finished this sentence. I truly believe that.
I truly believe that if representation matters, if there's somebody if you could see somebody who inspires you and look up to them, it really will make a huge difference in your trajectory.
Love it. My favorite book is.
Ooh, my favorite book is I don't know, outside of like a professional academic sense, because there's way too many. Probably Tell Me Three Things. I love romance novels, and that's just a lovely one. That's actually a really good question. You've asked an open Pandora's box. I'm gonna look. Yeah, I'm gonna look it up.
I'm a book
It's
nerd.
by Julie Buxbaum.
Okay.
Buxbaum.
Okay. I'll look it up. I'll look it
Yes,
up and I'll put it on my list. I'll put it on my
yes.
list.
Do it.
Thank you. In 2 words, I would tell my younger self to.
um. Not stop.
Snaps, snaps. Okay, and last one. Right now, I feel.
Right now, I feel, I don't know, it's a tie between motivated and inspired. This is such a good idea for a podcast.
That's so. Oh my gosh. Woo! Wow. Okay, now I'm motivated and inspired. Haley, thank you so much. First of all, thank you so much for taking the time out because I know you're moving right now. You got a lot going on right now. So thank you for being here and thank you for expressing yourself and thank you for being a game changer and doing what you do. I truly believe that you have a bright future ahead of you. So please keep up the good work for not only yourself, but the people around you, for girls that look like you, girls like me. So, and I just turned 26. So, it's just super amazing to get to talk to you. So thank you so much for being here. And where can my listeners find you?
Yeah, so on I have a website and it's www.haleytaylorschlitz.com, and on that you'll find all my social media and a way to contact me and all of it. So that's that.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you guys. And don't forget to be a kind person. You feel me? Bye. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. That was such a good conversation.